It's very funny. Corporate rent seeking has basically obliterated America's ability to engage in manufacturing, and this is the end result of that. U.S. defense giants Lockheed and Raytheon are reportedly resistant to licensing Patriot missile production to Ukraine because they fear that Ukrainian manufacturers will be able to, quote, improve the Patriot and then produce them at scale faster and for much less money. Look at my superpower dog. The fucking Ukrainians are out producing us. Remarkable. No hate to any Ukrainians watching, but I think you would agree with me when I say that something is a little bit wrong here. Russia pumps out their shells faster and cheaper. Well, that's because, unlike the United States, Russia did not allow its military corporations to engage in infinite rent seeking. The whole point of Lockheed and Raytheon's business model is to, sell products that are of like nebulously worthwhile at exorbitantly high rates, and then continue to crank out new models that cost more and more to produce. But in the Soviet Union, there is enough of a synchronicity between the interests of capital and the state for them to actually, produce missiles. In case you're wondering how Russia can continue to shell Ukraine nonstop, just artillery and missiles, they can produce way more than us, because in America, the point of the Pentagon is to turn your tax dollars into corporate money. Raytheon and Lockheed Martin allegedly fear competition from Ukraine on Patriot missiles, but all levers stay in U.S. hands, and IP theft concerns don't survive scrutiny. Well, that's nice. That's nice. Lockheed Martin, even during organizing PAC-3 missile assembly in Japan and Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, did not go for transferring entire missile productions and key components, for example, active radar. Well, you gotta have like some way of fleecing the Pentagon for more money. Some more news had a great episode in the MIC, and some of the insane numbers we pour into this endless money pit. I think that like some reframing is necessary here, Acting as though the Pentagon is wasting money is like pretending that the Fox News anchors keep accidentally making mistakes. The point of the MIC is to just take money from the government. It's the same thing that the police do, right? The police budgets in every city are massively overinflated, in large part because the police, operate as a kind of slush fund for a wide variety of interests that all pull money from it. Behind every police department are 1,000 private contractors making obscene amounts of money for dubiously useful, often actively harmful things. That's the point. Apparently, the U.S. only manufactured 600 interceptor missiles in the entirety of 2025. No, it's genuinely unbelievably embarrassing. But that's the point, We are no longer capable of producing anything, and nobody in government has the political will necessary to change that fact. Doesn't matter who becomes president, doesn't matter who's in Congress. Capital will not allow it. Will not allow it. Ukraine is also manufacturing munitions domestically at a high rate. Yeah, because Ukraine hasn't been raped to death by financiers. International capital, venture capital, has destroyed America's ability to produce anything domestically. This is beautiful. I agree. That is a beautiful building. Thank you, Iran. What is that monument? I'm not sure. It looks quite nice. During 5 intense days last month, Iran launched waves of drones and missiles at U.S. troops on 3 bases in Jordan, hoping to break through the formidable American air defenses. Using advanced missiles that can suddenly change course, Iran pummeled the base's defensive systems, forcing Americans to burn through scarce supplies of Patriot interceptors. On the 5th day, the Iranians broke through. A missile struck prefab housing units at one of the bases on July 17th, killing 3 U.S. soldiers and wounding more than 100. We're down to, I believe, about 20% of our interceptor stockpile, if I remember correctly. The Pentagon has used more than 1,500 Patriot interceptor missiles in the war and has fewer than 1,700 interceptors left. Not just Patriots, but all, I believe. The U.S. produced about 600 in all of 2025. Again, this is the reason why Russia can keep pounding Ukraine, but America has completely run out of weapons just a couple of months into this on and off bombing campaign we've done with Iran. I've said a million times before that fascism is destined to fail because it inevitably leads to an overestimation of your own ability, an irrationalist worldview that makes it impossible for the leadership to adjust course and meet reality on its own terms. This is the case here, but fascism really isn't the big villain here. Really, it's capitalism. Capitalism has metastasized to a point of near comedy in the United States, where literally trillions of dollars being poured into the Pentagon just evaporates into nothing. It's not fascism. This would happen under liberal governance as well. It's genuinely like unbelievable. I think it exceeds the cynicism that you would see in basically any 19th century Marxist or academic or whoever else. But the 19th century Marxist, you can just call him Marx, buddy. Dog, Russia is raped most thoroughly by capital. Russia is extremely raped by capital, but they can produce missiles cheaper than we can. And trust me, it's not just because wages are lower over there. It's because in the United States, every business that works with the government, every public-private partnership is designed to maximize rent seeking from the corporation. All of them. It's their one job. Whereas in Russia, there is still enough of a semblance of state control. Ironically, their fascism is saving them. The militarism of their leadership, of the oligarchs that run the government, of Putin himself, means that the military contractors the government works with can't get away with charging the Russian government $50 billion per missile. In other words, the Russian government is stronger than the factory owners. In America, there is no government. There is only factory owners. Or I guess, private financiers. In America, the government has completely lost the ability to rein in the private sector, which means that we're not capable of doing or building anything anymore. It is remarkable. By the way, I'm not exaggerating here. We have reached a level of late-stage capitalist financial incompetence which exceeds that of Russia. I'm not joking. It's unbelievably bad. According to this article, Iran shot down a $40 million jet with a shoulder-fired missile. That's cool. Oh yeah, no kidding. In April, Iran shot down an American F-15E fighter jet over southern Iran with a shoulder-fired surface-to-air missile. That is grim. That is very, very grim. The F-35 is basically the McDonald's ice cream machine. Well, that's the point of it, yeah. Just over 1 in 4 F-35s is mission capable. All of your tax dollars, all of the money that you give to the government every year is burnt away into nothing. Just a program to, fleece the government for as much contractor money as possible. That's the only reason anything exists anymore. We're actually a paper tiger. We are the most paper tiger in history. We're like a ephemeral rice paper demon god. Like the dissonance between the image and the reality has never been this stark. Paper dragon. Ephemeral smoke dragon. Look at this. In fiscal year 2021, the F-35 mission-capable rate was 66.8%. That figure plunged in 2025 to 44.1%. Full mission-capable rates, the share of time an F-35 could carry out all of its missions, dropped from 38.1% in 2021 to 24.6% in 2025. It's just, why not? Just billions and billions being spent. You know the Pentagon doesn't have right to repair? Did you know that? You know that when military equipment breaks down, we don't have Army engineers whose job it is to repair it. You have to send out contractors. That's real. That was one of the big reasons the Iraq War cost so much, is because we send all this equipment out there into the dust-choked desert of Iraq, and then everything breaks down, obviously, because it's all dusty. And then you have to wait for fucking Lockheed to send out, some $250,000 a year contractors getting paid overtime and bonus hazard pay to show up at an airbase in Jordan and, crank everything, $20,000 per nut and bolt at it. This is real. This is all real. All of it's deliberate. All of it's done on purpose. All of it's done to fleece money as much as possible. Only Lockheed Martin can update the software of F-35s. Update the software, hitting the damn red button. It's illegal to do otherwise. Like, let me put it this way. If the U.S. government attempted to save money by doing its own repairs, Lockheed Martin could sue them in court and win. Could bring the federal government down to its knees. America wouldn't have survived World War II if it had the financialization of today. Oh, no. Nazi Germany would have taken over the world if every other country was like America today. Oh yeah, no. If the Soviet Union, America, France, the United Kingdom, and so on had then the today America's Pentagon, yeah, we would all be speaking German. Absolutely. I mean, this is kind of how military weapons equipment goes. No, it's not. It was not like this. It became like this through the 1980s and onward, but it did not used to be like this. You're right, we had a piece of equipment in my shop that would literally brick if we opened it. Only the contractors could. There you go. I actually still believe in the capability of the U.S. to rearm if needed. Well, it actually goes beyond just rearmament, you know? So a lot of articles are being circulated right now on how much of a paper tiger the United States is, and I think that's worth discussing. The U.S. is running out of missiles. After 5 months of war with Iran, stockpiles of long-range weapons are so low, current and former U.S. defense officials told us they don't believe the U.S. has enough to combat a threat in Asia. Oh, no. No, guys, if we warred with China, we'd be speaking Chinese by next year. I'm not saying that as a chauvinist. I'm not saying that as like a campist. That is just factually true. China has enough control over its private sector that it is still capable of building things, and we are not. It really is that simple. We literally ran out of munitions after peppering Iran intermittently for 5 months. How the fuck are we going to stand up to China? We would lose unimaginably quickly. It wouldn't even be close. In fact, I would go so far as to say I think that China, with excluding nuclear weapons, because that's a whole level on its own, I actually think China would have an easier time taking over us, beating our armies, than they would Taiwan. I mean that genuinely. I think that if Taiwan hunkered down and tried to defend itself as best as it could, occupying it would be a sturdier challenge for the Chinese government than defeating our fleets and just obliterating us. Like, China would have an easier time wiping our navy back to the Stone Age and destroying all of our ports and just nullifying us than they would occupying Taiwan. Cap, I mean it. I mean it completely and sincerely. The remaining supplies, depending on the munitions, are as low as 20% of what the Pentagon would like to have on hand. And stores of sophisticated interceptor missiles, such as Patriots and terminal high-altitude area defense missiles, are too depleted to give or sell the weapons to Ukraine or effectively defend against Iran's launch of ballistic missiles. Even when troops see Iranian missiles approaching, they are forced to decide in a matter of seconds whether to expend a limited number of interceptors or hope for the best, the defense officials told us. Apocalyptic. How the fuck do you think we're going to stand up to China? Apparently, these shortages are the real reason Trump keeps toggling. Makes sense, but it's not going to get any better. We'll talk about that in a bit. Iran has basically said they're just not willing to negotiate until Trump's out of office, which makes sense from their perspective. But anyway, the point that I was getting at was that this... Here, hold on. There's a CNN blip I want to watch, and then we have to expand this a little bit. This discussion.
The U.S. war with Iran has left U.S. stockpiles of a key missile defense system dangerously low, sources tell CNN. The U.S. has depleted nearly 80% of its THAAD high-altitude missile interceptors and 50% of its...
Dog, we would lose against Russia at this point. Maybe Call of Duty was right. Yeah, I think that a starker way of putting this is, yeah, that is true. If we were Ukraine, if rather than to the west of Russia, rather than Ukraine, there was us. If we were right there, nestled below the Baltics, right up against the Balkan states, there was the United States of America. I genuinely think Russia would have won by now. 100%, I do believe that. Absolutely. Come on, the U.S. could still beat Russia. I genuinely, the more you read about this, the more that is an untenable position. It's just not true. Like, at the end of the day, America's might is cultural and economic. But the economy that I'm referring to is entirely financial. We don't produce anything. We literally cannot produce weapons. For years now, the Pentagon has been screaming, more money. It doesn't do anything. It genuinely might as well be. It doesn't matter how much money you throw at the Pentagon. They might as well just be burning it for heat in their big-ass office building. It literally doesn't matter. Russia does produce weapons. It doesn't matter how much money there is involved. We only produce pedophiles in the White House. Literally, like, if you need to look past GDP, which is fake, and look at what actually matters, which is procurement. How many weapons does a country produce? How many munitions? In this respect, America is third world.
Patriot interceptors. So what does this mean for the U.S.? It limits military options against Iran going forward. And for U.S. allies in the Gulf, it makes clear to them that they remain vulnerable to Iranian missile and drone strikes. More broadly, for Europe, it means that U.S. help for Ukrainian air defense is unlikely to come anytime soon. And it's a wake-up call for Europe that it has to accelerate production of its own air defense missiles and air defense systems. Finally, China is watching all of this very closely and calculating just how long the U.S. might be able to maintain operations in any particular
Also, Russia's mostly using stockpiles in the Soviet area. Yeah, but their manufacturing is still greater than ours. They are producing more. If you scale how much the Russia is producing relative to the size of their economy, they're literally orders of magnitude more than us. Hundreds, maybe even thousands of times more production than us. If we were capable of producing munitions as efficiently as Russia, we would be a galactic superpower. That's how wealthy and inefficient we are. Need I remind all of you of the now infamous Defense Watchdog finds new 155mm artillery plant failed to produce parts in 2 years since it was built. Pentagon gave hundreds of millions of dollars to this, what's it, Northrop Grumman? Which one was this again? No, General Dynamics factory. And for 2 years, they just produced nothing. Hundreds of millions of dollars, big old building, nothing got produced. Will there be legal consequences? No. Did they make any? No. Everything is working exactly as it is meant to. The purpose of a system is its outcome. The goal was to give money to General Dynamics, and that's exactly what happened. Why engage in like the fakery? Why do the pantomiming? You know, why produce anything? That's not the point. Just got here about 5 minutes ago. Did he cover the U.S. threatening to whip out its oil drill dick on Greenland? If it makes you feel any better, the way things are going right now, Greenland could fight off America. So 90% of military budget is just going to Diddy parties at this point? Yeah, I mean, essentially, you know. The whole point of the public-private partnership dynamic in American government is to distribute government funds across as many contractors as possible. Remember that email that I got that described how it cost tens of thousands of dollars to repaint a single sidewalk crossing, even though the labor and paint required to do so amounted to just a couple $100? The word is kickback. Well, kickbacks imply some degree of like pre-negotiated malfeasance, but in this case, it's every system at every point of interaction. It's the whole point of the system. It's the only reason it exists. It's deeper than just kickbacks. Kickbacks imply some kind of prior relationship, you know? This is just the way the system works. It's trickle-up economics, essentially. That's the only point. The Pentagon this year asked for more than $70 billion in the budget. It won't do anything. 70 million. You can toss $70 billion at all these PMC or you know MIC industries. It's not going to change anything. It's not going to do anything. And to highlight this, if I might, because I've been trying to get to this point here, it's of course not just the military. You're not going to be surprised by this. The Francis Scott Key Bridge has been delayed in its reconstruction. Remember that? Remember when a rogue ship had what was it, like the rudder failed or something? The electrical systems went haywire, destroyed the Francis Scott Key Bridge. 2030. 5 years to rebuild a bridge we already had built. Iran has already rebuilt bridges we've destroyed since the beginning of the war. China would have it up within 1 year. 4 years? Yeah, but it was destroyed last year, so 5 years. And what's the budget? Oh, let's take a look. Francis Scott Key Bridge repair. Let's take a look at how the budget has ballooned. Let's see. Well, the original estimate was that it would be done by October 2028 at an estimated cost of 1.7 to 1.9 billion. And now it's been pushed back years. This is an essential bridge, by the way. This is essential infrastructure. This is not like an incidental bridge. The destruction of this bridge has majorly impacted a very large number of people. Now the cost is around $5 billion. And this is just the first series of delays and cost increases. It will go up. In fact, I think it's very possible the Francis Scott Key Bridge never gets replaced. I think it's possible that we've over-financialized to a point where we essentially can't rebuild key infrastructure. There are no longer any reliable contractors anywhere. All of them have rent sought to the point of maximum efficiency. If by efficiency you mean, you know, fleecing as much money out of government contracts as possible. I think it's very possible this never actually gets rebuilt. I think we might be reaching a point where key infrastructure damage dealt by climate or terrorism is now permanent. I don't think they're going to build this. I don't think it's going to be built. I think it might be the end of this bridge for at least the foreseeable future. The issue is that any push to improve state building in the U.S. directly destroys the power of financialization, so it'll never happen. Exactly, yeah. Because it's never just one battle. To fight back against the corporate rent-seeking that is keeping this bridge from being rebuilt, you have to fight back against all of capital. you know? Any threat to financialization anywhere, any challenge to the omnisegment or whatever, is a challenge to all of it everywhere. You know what I mean? The same reason that the powers that be didn't want Mamdani to win, because he's proof that if you actually get a good non-Zionist shill leader in power, they can actually do things to help people, which sets higher expectations for everyone else. If this bridge was allowed to go up for the cost that it took to originally build it, and let's just, don't mind me, hold on one second. Cost to build Francis Scott Key Bridge originally, $141 million, or $568 million today. So the rebuild is about 10 times that cost, and that's now. That's just now. Oh, I'm sorry. The $141 million cost is an upper estimate, and it includes surrounding highway approaches and a wider outer harbor. The cost of the bridge itself was more around $60 million, or approximately $250 million today. So for 40 times that cost, 20 times, my apologies, 20 times that cost, maybe we'll get a replacement eventually. And that was in 1977. I mean, that was right before Reagan, too. Hardly like, you know, the days the Empire State Building were brought up, you know? It's even within the span of a Gen Xer's lifetime, we've lost the ability to build anything. It's truly over. We can't be that fucked up, man. No, truly. It's it. Well, the seeds of our own destruction are laid in as definitely and immovably as, I don't know, the lead pipes of Rome. It's not fixable. No one can fix this, because to do so, you would have to challenge international capital. It's because of too much subcontracting in the industry at every level. It's not too much subcontracting. It's exactly the amount of subcontracting they can get away with to rape the country to death. I don't know what you mean by too much. That would imply that this isn't all the point. This is all the point. It's just incomprehensible. Yeah, it is. It's, not great. You know, I think I saw an article on this, on how, let me see if I can find it, on how the New York City government has saved a lot of money by dropping public-private partnerships. One second. NYC ending public-private contracting, saving billions. I think this happened before Mamdani, I believe. Let me see. This is about how Mamdani is ending. Let me see. Oh, no, wait. I think this might be a Chud story? I'm not entirely sure. This is saying that he's giving money to people because they're black. That's based or whatever. But it's not what I was looking for. Let me see if I can find the New York City's multi-billion-dollar black box contracts face scrutiny. Master agreements let the city wildly exceed spending projections while avoiding typical oversight. This is from May 6, 2026. In 2023, New York City signed a $30 million contract with the Texas-based disaster response company Garner Environmental Services as part of its emergency effort to house thousands of asylum seekers. 3 years later, the city has overspent that deal 25 times over, paying Garner more than $750 million. Exactly what that money went toward, however, is unknown to the public. Great. No, really. Master agreements, which make up about 17% of the city's total contract spending over the last 4 years, are used by city agencies when they expect some future need for goods or services, but don't know exactly how much or how often they'll need to buy them. So it's just like a black box public-private partnership slush fund. Gotcha. Vosh, the only bright spot about this is that America has enough infrastructure, skilled labor, and raw resources that if financialization was rooted out of the country, it could still function. I'm sorry, I don't think it's going to happen. That's like saying that even if the Roman Empire fell, it wouldn't matter because the master tradesmen still present in the remnants of the empire would allow things to rebuild. That's not happening, bucko. The late Bronze Age is collapsing. At the end of the day, the thing you have to learn from this is that absolutely everything is downstream of systems. Systems, incentive structures, institutions, that's what builds an empire. That's what keeps a nation afloat, you know? It doesn't matter how many talented people you have. If the systems are broken, they're broken. In this case, they're more broken than they ever have been in human history. No nation has ever reached this degree of deliberate financial irrationality. So, you know, we're in unprecedented territory, and we're doing it on the eve of a climate apocalypse. Yeah, the Roman Empire died very slowly. Well, if it makes you feel any better, this one's going to happen much faster. Much faster. I'm interested to hear your take on the degree to which Dutch systems are captured. Oh, listen, the problems that I'm describing are present essentially all over the world right now, including in China. America has it the worst by far, but the Netherlands has it too, and it's only going to get worse. It's possible that America has such a spectacular and rapid financial collapse that it warns other nations against doing what we've been doing, but somehow I doubt it. We'll see. Man, this article just goes on and on. Much of the city's master agreement money has been spent on tech, often funneled through the Office of Technology and Innovation. Instead of buying its IT products directly from vendors, OTI typically contracts with clearinghouses that have their own relationships with tech manufacturers and consultants. See, every step of the process has been maximized to waste as much money as possible. No stone has been left unturned. Every element of the pipeline has been refined to its optimal wastefulness. The setup has confounded financial oversights and transparency advocates who cannot determine exactly what was purchased or from whom. Indeed, OTI overspent by more than $3 billion on 2 of its citywide IT contracts from 2018 to 2025. One of those deals, an agreement with the firm CDW Government LLC, lets the city buy goods from more than 740 different manufacturers and service providers, yet the delivery orders that stem from the contract have no public information about what goods and services were bought or what vendors supplied them. In all likelihood, nothing was purchased. It's very possible the city of New York just signed, blank checks to these vendors. Remember, after Mamdani won, Mayor Eric Adams drove up the budget vindictively, signing on with a bunch more contracts to deliberately worsen the budget deficit. As a servant of Israel, he knows that it's his job to maximize death and suffering, so he wanted to create as big of a pit as possible for Mamdani to have to climb out of. Mamdani has climbed out of it. New York City is now budget neutral. But New York City's still on the hook for many billions in spending and contracts that Mamdani can't renege out of. The biggest purchase was for $142 million worth of Chromebooks for public school students. This is why we can't remove tech from our schools, by the way. Like student-parent meetings or whatever, they're like, can we please stop giving iPads to every kid? No, of course not, because the school district gives money to tech companies to get those iPads. The whole point, it's tax dollars to them. Always tax dollars to them. Everything flows upward. No exceptions. Half the parents want the iPads. That's changing. More and more parents want tech out of schools, and the schools just shrug and say, nope. As a public institution, our job as a school is to give money to corporations. That's 710,000 Chromebooks. Oh, buddy, you think that New York City was buying Chromebooks at the market rate? I guarantee you they were getting upcharged like crazy. You seen what the Pentagon pays for a barber's haircut? Contractors too.